Good evening, and welcome to another misogynistic version of Diatribe from the voice of Doom. Now here's your host, the chauvinistic and patriarchal voice of Doom. I'll try to time that out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to do another one, and it's evening, and I am not that drunk. So that's pretty cool. But I do have a little pick-me-up. I wanted to apologize for yesterday's diatribe. It was really bad, and it will go on my list of the worst of Voice of Doom. When I put together that playlist, it will be excruciating. Only the most loyal fan who will listen to almost anything will enjoy those diatribes. And the last one I hated, but I posted it anyway because I wanted to get a diatribe up because I like watching myself. It's a psycho-auto-erotic thing for me. Now, as a coda to yesterday's fiasco, I found another word in my diatribes that I forgot to tell you about. It's called boardrooms. It's being in the boardrooms. That is being the act of being bored in the doldrums of the border, which a lot of people probably are when they're standing in line waiting for their free apartment. Now, I'm going to make it up to you with this diatribe because I think it's going to be a good one. I hope I can be really, really sarcastic, which is my want. So, the title of it is Karenism. And that's not the kind of subject that I'd even want to do. But after a weekend of working in this restaurant that I work in, and the people that I see, I decided I was going to devote 15 minutes to the Karens of the world. Try to give you a little background and do a little deep dive. Now, Karenism means a stuck-up, self-centered, I'm going to call the manager, middle-aged woman with white privilege. It's a meme, it's a caricature, it's racist, but it applies. If you've worked in a restaurant, you know it applies, especially if you work in northern Nevada, where 99.9999999% of the people that you run into are Caucasoids, and about 60 to 70% of the people I run into, at least, maybe 80, the Caucasoids in my town that I work in are of the age of between, say, 50 and 80. That age of just thinking it's all about me. When you see it on their face the minute they walk in the door, it's like, I'm here now, so you better pay all attention to me. I've been here for 10 seconds already and nobody's acknowledged me. Etc., etc. But I'll go into the mannerisms later. First, I want to do a little historical background. What can I say about this? From my cursory research, the term Karen kind of came up in the last 2 or 3 years to describe these white brats who usually have a little bit of money and they think that's going to buy them out of any problem, or how dare you even accost me about anything because I'm special. I've been in this town for all my life and I've worked with the Chamber of Commerce. But historically, it's the antebellum era, the people of color called the uppity white women Miss Anne, and they called the men Mr. Charlie. Early 90s, they were called Beckies. Then they had what they call alliterations, Barbecue Becky, Cornerstone Caroline, and Permit Patty. You don't have your permit. You know the kind. Annoying. July of 2020, Domino's offered free pizza to nice Karens. So how do you prove that you're nice and at the same time prove that you're a Karen at the same time? That ad campaign did not last long. And I found little things that I've never heard of before, but I found on the internet about the Streisand effect. Now, Barbara Streisand, I like her. She's another one of those horrible liberals, not even a bleeding heart liberal, a total numbskull liberal, that I admire her work. And I know that she's a perfectionist and she does good things. Watched a special on her, just a concert. And I didn't think I'd watch more than a song, and I watched the whole thing because she's really good. But most of these liberals are good. They're just idiots. Now, let's go back further in history and talk about a few Karens in history. Marie Antoinette. Now, she was a stuck-up, rich royal, and she got her head handed to her. That was when cause and effect was very strict. You know, we don't like you, we don't like your attitude, let them eat cake. She never actually said that. I think she said let them eat brioche, and it was attributed to her. We won't get into the weeds. But the attitude, like, you know, they don't have any bread, but let them eat cake, you know, that, you know, the attitude. Mary Malone was known as Typhoid Mary in the early 20th century. She spread around typhoid, and she didn't want to admit she had it because she had no symptoms. She was a asymptomatic carrier, just like we have now. And she refused to quit her job, and every time they fired her, she changed her name or something and got another one. And the authorities said, you got to be quarantined away from everybody. She refused. She was a brat. She thought she was all that. Stepford Wives of Levittown. Levittown was a prefab neighborhood which was supposed to represent the future of America. It was basically the beginning of suburbia, but they wanted to make it real uniform. They were probably getting into socialism back then, but it's supposed to be like the perfect neighborhood. And when a few neighbors decided to sell their houses to people of color, that just wouldn't do. So the Stepford Wives stepped in. And it became a brouhaha. Man, that kind of lasted through the 70s, you know. I don't want them in my neighborhood. They bring down the price of, you know, the property values. It's, you know, racist to the core. But at the same time, I don't mind people of any stripe living in the neighborhood, but if they're the type of people that are going to have cars going in and out all the time buying meth or whatever, then I don't care what color they are. I don't want them here. So, you see. Leona Helmsley, born 1920, died 2007. I never kept track of the fact that she was even gone, but she was a bitch. That's where I got that song from. The Specials, the post-punk ska revival of the early 80s. Great time in history. Great time for music. And it was called Little Bitch. That's the only song I could really come up with off the top of my head. But Leona Helmsley was a hotelier. She ran hotels. She was worth $5 billion. And she thought she was above the law. She said only little people pay taxes. And they said, you know what? You're on trial now. And you will go to jail. And she did. She was sentenced to 7 years for tax evasion. She was a tyrant, and they called her the Queen of Mean. So they were the precursors. They were the icons of the Karenist movement. Let's go on a little bit. I'm going to say there was an incident in May 25th of 2020. Kind of started bringing this Karenism to light a bit. I think everybody knows it in their heart, but it was brought out to the public arena when a certain Christian, I don't remember his last name, write everything down. Anyway, they both had the same last name, but one guy was of color and the other lady was not of color. She was of Karen. She was letting her dog off the leash and walking the dog in Central Park, and the person of color who was bird watching said, "You should put your dog on the leash." And she said, "Make me." "I don't have to do what you say." And the guy goes, "Well, if you can do what you want, then I'll do what I want, but you won't like it." And I don't think he was threatening her per se, but there was a scuffle and a dust-up, and they had the phones in 2020. So it was recorded, and it led to recriminations. Nobody died, but they actually made legislation that you cannot inflate an incident with race, or you cannot say, "This black man's following me, so I think he's going to rob me, so I'll call the police." That was made like you just can't do that. So that's fine. That was a Karen. Now, I'm going to use the last few minutes to just talk about the Karens that I run into, because they're annoying, and we're all white, so we're all nice to each other. We're all very genteel. But they get annoying because this is what a Karen will do in a restaurant. First of all, they crane their neck about, why isn't anybody helping me, because I'm here. I don't care if there's 500 other people here. I'm here now. And then when they finally settle down, they will say something to the effect of, "Well, what's the best thing on the menu?" or "What do you like on the menu?" And I'll say something like, "Well, I like these pastas with the cream sauce," or "I like this," and it'll be like, "Oh, I like these pastas. Well, my husband makes a great pasta, so I don't know about that." "Well, I like the salmon." And it's like, "Well, is it wild caught or is it farm?" They don't even know what they're talking about. You just have to act like they're... And I just go on and on about what I like, and they'll say either like, "I'm gluten-free" if I say the pastas, or something else, or if I, whatever. So everything I say is they're going to put it down, or they're going to say they can cook it better. I think I said something about marsala, and they're like, "Well, I had a really good marsala, it's the best." So I was like, "Well, then don't try ours." But it's kind of like, what do you like best on the menu? I should answer them and say, "Well, what is your dietary preference? What is your dietary restrictions? What did you eat last night? What have you eaten for the last 7 days?" So I know not to, recommend any of that. It's ridiculous. Now the Kens and the Kyles, I wanted to call the male equivalent of Karen Richard, because you can call him Dick for short. But these are the white older guys that have money. They think they own the world. They're annoying. They're annoying when you see them on the road. They're annoying almost all the time because they think they're it. So, I get these people like, "You don't have the gin I like. Why don't you have it?" "All right, I'm sorry, but we had it, but it was on the menu, now it's not." It's like, "Well, we didn't sell enough of it and it's expensive, so we didn't buy any more." "Well, I'll have a gin and tonic." Give them the gin and tonic. "Don't you have any name brand tonic? Why are you using that generic brand?" It's like, are you kidding me? The difference in tonic? Come on. So, annoying. And I put up with it. I have learned to let things wash off my back. I do not start it up with people, because I could easily just lose my control and say something very cutting, acerbic, sarcastic, and would get me either fired or start a brouhaha where they'd have to call the manager. That's their slogan. "Let me talk to the manager." Okay, well, I think I did all right. I'm going to talk about Karens of color, because nobody talks about Karens of color. But you put a Karen together with someone of color, and that's a double whammy, because not only are they stuck up, spoiled, privileged, they think they should get special treatment, but they also have a chip on their shoulder about being oppressed. So, they're worth $2 million, but you're just doing that because I'm of a color, brother. And I will talk about the Karen that we see every day, stumbling through speeches, mumbling and grumbling and laughing and cackling, by the name of Kamala Gargoyle Harris. Can't look at her straight in the face. It's like a Medusa. But she's a Karen, and everybody knows it because all of her staff leaves all the time because she's hard to deal with. She's a brat. She's spoiled. She thinks she's privileged because she happened to fill in all the blanks to become vice president. Absolutely no business being vice president. None. And if Petrie has a mishap, well, God help us all. The first Karen president of the United States. So that's a little over 16, and I think I got in enough sarcasm there. I think I said what I wanted to, and I think it was succinct, and I think you got some good information in there. So that'll make up for my last one that was so bad. So enjoy the night and treat women with respect. Open the door for them, and if they yell at you and say chauvinist pig, well, that's because they're a Karen. Good night.